Grab your helmet because we're diving into some of the deadliest places on Earth. Caves, where one wrong move can mean the difference between life and death. From panicked divers losing their grip on survival, to flash floods that turn fun excursions into death traps. It's getting dark and dangerous on today's episode of the Infographic Show, the most painful cave deaths in history. Number 7. In September 1984, Peter Verhoek, a 29-year-old experienced diver, and two friends prepared to dive into the Sterkfontein Caves just outside of Johannesburg, South Africa. Famous for its narrow passages, submerged tunnels, and hidden treasures, the trio set out to explore Milner Hall, one of the largest underground lakes in the cave network. The plan was simple: follow the guideline, collect some data, and turn back. The group split into two teams. The first, the more experienced divers, would go deeper, laying markers and pushing ahead, while Peter and his less experienced friend would follow behind. The first diver, equipped with larger oxygen tanks, had a longer window to explore. Meanwhile, Peter's team would have to surface earlier. Equipped with the standard cave diving gear of the time, double tanks, pressure gauges, and wetsuits, Peter's team set off, their movements restricted by the cold and heavy equipment. They crawled through narrow fissures and swam across large underwater lakes. The guidelines, thin ropes strung through the caves, were their only lifeline. Things were going as planned, but Peter couldn't resist the pull of the unexplored tunnels. Peter abandoned the guideline, slipping into one of the dark passageways. His companions didn't realize that he was lost until he had already ventured into a complex, submerged labyrinth, far from the safety of the main tunnel. Peter, now stranded in a vast underwater void, found himself cut off from his companions. Finding the correct path back was nearly impossible. Peter swam frantically through narrow channels and underwater caves. No light, no direction, just the feeling of being pulled deeper into the earth. He eventually stumbled upon a small island at the end of a blind tunnel, an eerie, quiet refuge from cold, dark waters. It was his only chance to survive, but it was not enough to escape. Peter had no way to signal for help. Eventually, the alarm was raised, and as hours turned into days, Peter's situation grew dire. His oxygen levels dwindled, while police divers swept through the cave system in a pattern searching for him. Finally, after 6 weeks, a break came. A dry search revealed a hidden hole in the cave, which led to a long, twisting tunnel. There, in total darkness, the searchers found Peter's lifeless body. Shriveled with starvation, he survived for 3 weeks before dying alone in the cold dark of the cave. His final message for his wife and his mother was scrawled in the sand beside him: "I love you, Shrill and Ma." Number 6. It was November 24, 2009, and Jon Jones, a 26-year-old medical student, was about to take an adventure in Nutty Putty Cave in Utah. Known for its tight, winding tunnels and perilous passages, Nutty Putty had attracted explorers for decades. Jon, along with his brother and friends, had entered the cave as part of a Thanksgiving tradition, a throwback to childhood adventures. Jon, wearing a vintage rainbow-colored caving headlamp, entered one of the most challenging passages in the cave, the birth canal. It was a narrow corkscrew of rock that only the nimblest could navigate, but as he wriggled through, the walls closed in on him. His body, 6 feet tall and 200 pounds, was trapped in a slender 10-inch wide fissure that only seemed to tighten as he tried to free himself. Jon was wedged in tight, one arm pinned beneath his chest, the other twisted painfully behind him. Rescue efforts were launched, but the cave's treacherous twists and turns combined with the size of the passage meant that there was no quick solution. It was a race against time and against the physical toll that being trapped in such a position would have on his body. At 12:30 a.m., Susie Matah, a skilled caver and search and rescue volunteer, was the first to crawl her way into the cramped, humid tunnel. Crawling on her belly, she made her way through the cave's narrow passage, guided only by the beam of her headlamp. 20 minutes later, she found Jon's feet sticking out from a narrow crevice. Jon was nearly upside down, his body wedged so tightly that even Susie's slim 5'3" frame couldn't extend far enough to offer much help. The rescue team would need to work quickly and carefully, but Jon's situation was more dire than anyone realized. His limbs were trapped in the narrow crevice, his blood struggling to pump to his brain. His circulation began to fail. Rescue teams worked tirelessly, using ropes, pulley systems, and everything in their arsenal to try to free him. They even considered vegetable oil and explosives as last-ditch efforts. But everything they tried either failed or took too long. Time was running out. For Jon, every minute felt like eternity. The rescue team began to realize the true extent of the situation. Jon's body, nearly upside down for 19 hours, was now in critical condition. His blood pressure had dropped. and his lungs were filling with fluid. After hours of painstaking work, a pulley system was rigged, and Jon's body began to inch upward. But as they pulled, the rocks shifted and a stone arch gave way, sending a heavy carabiner slamming into rescuer Ryan Schertz's face. He was knocked out cold. When Ryan came to, he insisted someone stay with Jon. His father, Dave, stepped up without hesitation. The angle of the tunnel meant that Dave couldn't safely move his body without risking severe injury or becoming trapped himself. It was clear now, Jon couldn't be saved. After trying one last time to lift him out, the unthinkable happened. Jon's body slipped back into the crevice, and he stopped breathing. He had been in a head-down position for 27 hours. His body had given up. At 11:56 p.m. on November 25, 2009, Jon Jones was pronounced dead. Number 5. On December 9, 2004, two experienced cave divers, Jeff Hunter and Connie Lohr, set out on a dive into the depths of the Sistema Sacactun, one of Mexico's largest and most renowned cave systems. Located near Cenote Calimba, the entrance to this vast labyrinth of underwater passageways is a hub for divers looking to explore its winding corridors. Jeff and Connie, both full cave certified and with extensive dive logs, had arrived with a team of 2 other divers. They planned to follow the Cenote Calimba line, making a short jump to Boschchen and then heading back the same way. The team had mapped out every detail. They knew the twists and turns of the cave and had discussed everything, from snap and gap lines to non-directional markers, to ensure a smooth, safe dive. The divers descended into the cave's labyrinth, but after they reached a section known as the Paso de Lagarto, Connie signaled to turn back. The 4-person team made their way back, but something went quickly wrong. The team, having removed the non-directional marker, found themselves swimming downstream, away from their intended exit. Instead of retracing their steps, they swam 1,400 feet down a path they had no intention of taking. They had no way of knowing that their air supplies were dangerously low. One of the party had a digital camera with him, capturing footage of the dive. As they swam further, they continued taking photos and focusing on the videography rather than checking their remaining air. It wasn't until much later that the full weight of the situation hit them when one of them noticed that their pressure gauge reading was only at 700 psi. The team had to share the remaining air amongst them while they attempted to get to the surface. But they had already passed several directional arrows and missed the critical jump spool they needed to make in order to exit. In the panic and confusion, Jeff and Connie were unable to find the right path back to Cenote Calimba, becoming separated from the other divers. They continued to swim, now at a frantic pace, while the air in their tanks was rapidly depleting. The clock was ticking. With 250 feet left to reach the exit, both Jeff and Connie were found trapped on the ceiling of the cave, their air tanks completely drained. Jeff's primary light was off, and Connie's light was still burning, a sign that they had tried to make their way out, but their time had run out. The 2 victims were found in the sharing air position, a grim indication that they had tried to help each other survive until the very end. The search and recovery efforts concluded the next day, with the victims' bodies brought to the surface. Number 4. It was September 10, 2002, when seasoned diver Miroslav took the plunge into the mysterious depths of Poganica Cave, tucked away on the island of Shota, Croatia. Miroslav planned to join a team of divers at Cenote Poganica for a routine exploration. By the time he arrived, the others had already descended into the 75-degree Fahrenheit water, equipped with 4-gallon air cylinders and dive computers. Clad in neoprene to ward off the evening chill, Miroslav descended into the bay, the cave entrance looming 9 meters below. The entrance to Poganica Cave was narrow, only 6.6 feet wide, but beyond it stretched a twisting labyrinth of submerged passageways. At a depth of 49 feet, the cave split into 2. One route was relatively shallow, while the other dropped sharply into the unknown. This was no ordinary underwater tunnel. It was deceptively beautiful but deadly. The cave floor was coated in a fine layer of silt, so delicate that the faintest kick from a diver's fin could send it swirling into a thick, blinding cloud. When this happened, even the brightest flashlights became useless, but Miroslav pushed on regardless, descending into the darkness. Miroslav's descent continued into an area known as the Deep Gallery, descending to 187 feet. Around him, the once clear waters turned into a murky trap. The silt, stirred by Miroslav's movements, hung in the water, making it difficult to see. It was 25 minutes into the dive when Miroslav realized his predicament, meaning he had only 35 minutes of air left. The shallow gallery loomed ahead, but Miroslav, now disoriented in the swirls of silt, inadvertently entered into the deeper, more complex labyrinth. Back on the surface, the other divers had noticed Miroslav's absence. By 10:30 p.m., the group had returned to the shore, but Miroslav was nowhere to be found. Panic began to set in as they retraced their steps, plunging back into the cave with their lights, searching for any sign of their missing friend. Hours passed as the search teams combed the dark depths, but each twist of the cave offered nothing. By 11:41 p.m., the hope of finding Miroslav alive had practically disappeared. His air supply had long run out. The odds of him finding refuge in the cave's unseen air pockets seemed increasingly slim. At 12:15 a.m., after hours of searching, 2 police divers finally reached the 49-foot mark of the cave. As they ventured deeper into the dark abyss, the lifeline went slack. One of the police divers vanished without a trace. The remaining diver, now trapped in the same murk, rushed toward the surface, skipping necessary decompression steps, desperate to escape the suffocating cave. The next day, divers re-entered the cave and found Miroslav's body at almost 180 feet. His mask had been discarded, his regulator was ripped from his mouth, and most chilling of all, a knife was lodged in his chest. As authorities scrambled to make sense of the details, autopsy results revealed the truth. Miroslav had been stabbed in the chest, the wound large enough to puncture his aorta, leading to rapid blood loss. Drowning followed soon after. The blade lodged into his chest seemed too deliberate to be an accident, making foul play a likely scenario. But lingering questions remain. Number 3. At 3 a.m. on August 23, 2005, 5 friends hiked up Y Mountain just above Provo, Utah. Their destination was a cave, ominously nicknamed Cave of Death by the locals and thrill seekers who had previously explored its network of tunnels. The plan was set the night before. Jennifer Galbraith, 21, had visited the cave once before and spoke about its narrow, water-filled passages. Despite knowing the risks, her friends couldn't resist the thrill of adventure. The cave entrance, located just above Seven Peaks area, was nothing more than a small submerged hole, an opening just large enough for the adventurous to crawl through. The real danger lay in the narrow 15-foot underwater passage that separated 2 caverns. This led to a chamber where 2 feet of breathable air awaited, but only if the adventurers could make it through. Jennifer, along with Blake Donner, 24, Scott McDonald, 28, and Ariel Singer, 18, ventured into the cave at around 4:30 a.m. Their 5th friend, Joseph Ferguson, 26, opted to wait outside, unwilling to join them in the daring adventure. After about 45 minutes of waiting, Ferguson grew nervous. No one had returned. By 6:25 a.m., his concern turned into panic. Ferguson dialed 911, reporting that his friends were missing inside the cave. Inside the cave, the group had made it through the initial chamber and reached the underwater tunnel, a tight passage between the 2 caverns. They were in good spirits, believing they could make it through. But as they attempted to swim through the narrow tunnel, the murky water and swirling silt disoriented them. The rope, which could have guided them back to the exit, was lost in the chaos. They made it through to the second cavern, where there was a small air pocket allowing them to take brief breaths in the chest-high water. But in the end, the attempt to swim back out proved disastrous. They got lost in the darkness, and the tunnel claimed them one by one. Their bodies were found later in the same underwater passage, facing toward the exit, indicating that they had tried to swim back out. After the bodies were recovered, officials closed the cave with rocks and concrete, sealing it off to prevent future tragedies. Number 2. It was a seemingly perfect adventure, exploring one of Thailand's hidden gems in the heart of Khao Sok National Park, a lush paradise of limestone cliffs and dense jungle. But on October 27, 2007, the beauty of Nam Talu Cave would take a dark turn. A group of 9 had set out on what was meant to be a routine cave exploration in Surat Thani. Amongst them was Helena Carroll and her fiancé, John Cullen. Along with the couple were a Swiss family of 4, a German boy and his mother, and 2 Thai guides. It was a routine trip, despite warnings from locals and other tourists about the unsafe conditions caused by the monsoon rains. As the group ventured deeper into the cave, the waters began to rise. Almost halfway through, Helena heard a terrifying roar from behind the group. A torrent of water came rushing in, quickly engulfing the cave. The tourists scrambled, but the water was relentless. In the ensuing chaos, John and Helena began climbing the cave's walls, trying to escape the rising tide. They were soon joined by the rest of the group, but as the water surged, members of the group were dragged away one by one, including the German boy and 2 guides. Soon their flashlights flickered out, leaving them in utter darkness. John begged Helena to swim back to the surface. It was their only shot at survival, but Helena refused. She insisted they stay put, convinced it was safer to wait. Knowing that they were running out of time, John made a decision. He let the current take him, hoping it would lead to an exit, and that he could return with help. Helena watched him disappear, carried away by the raging waters. She was left alone, shivering, as she clung to a ledge, in pitch black darkness, hearing only the sound of the water swirling around her. She sat there for hours waiting for something, anything to save her. The rescue operation was slow, methodical, and treacherous. 16 hours later, Helena was rescued, but when she emerged, she was greeted with a devastating truth. She was the only survivor. The bodies of John Cullen, the Swiss couple, and their 2 daughters, a 10-year-old German boy, and 2 Thai guides were recovered. They were found in the same passageway, all of them trapped, struggling to make their way out as the flood surged around them. Number 1. On August 7, 2024, nearly 2 decades later, 22 tourists and their 2 local guides were making their way out of the Nam Talu cave. The group had already been warned that the cave was closed to the public from June to November due to the danger of flooding. Despite this, the guides chose to ignore these risks and proceed inside. Around 7:30 p.m., just as the group began their exit, the flash flood hit. One of the guides was swept off his feet and carried back into the cave by the surge of water. Fortunately, the rest of the group managed to resist the current and were safely led out by rangers. However, 2 Dutch women sustained minor leg injuries and were treated at a local hospital. Rescue teams began searching for the missing guide. By 3:20 a.m. on Wednesday, his lifeless body was found deep inside the cave. The Nam Talu cave had claimed another victim. Now go watch I Was Trapped in a Cave for 18 Days with Water Rising, or click on this video instead.